Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you during the next panel, the discussion panel that we are starting right now is named Energy Poverty versus Energy Efficiency. I'd like to welcome all the people that have come here. I welcome everybody online that are watching us on different platforms, and I'd like to welcome the speakers. It's my pleasure that you have accepted the invitation to this uneasy panel and discussion that will certainly bring a lot of bitter thoughts. Gabriela Lenartowicz, the Polish MP, Platforma Obywatelska, the Civic Platform, Adam Ambrozik, a lawyer, economist, institutional relations Director CEE at VELUX, Professor Karolina Safarzyńska, an economist from Political Economy Chair at the Warsaw University, Tomasz Wawak. He is a political scientist. He is a district leader of inhabitants, member of the Independent Association, an activist, and a city councillor. It's the next year that I'm hosting panels during the Freedom Games. I was wondering what word accompanied us last year. I believe that was recovery. All the talks, discussions were about that. Everybody expected that once the pandemic was over, it would be easier. Compared to this year, that was a very kind word. Ever since they started this Freedom Games, crisis is the most repeated word. We are in the time of different crises. There was the COVID crisis, the war, the energy crisis we are about to discuss, the economic crisis that is about to begin. But in the light of energy poverty and energy efficiency, we will certainly discuss the area of energy transition, climate policy, and foremostly why in the second decade of the 21st century, over 40 people in Poland admit they have no coal reserves. It seems we are a well-developed country in developed civilization, and people say they will freeze, fall sick, or even suffer from cold. Poland admits that it is the leader of climate policies. Three times we hosted the climate summit with declarations on transition, energy efficiency, that our economy makes it all perfect, is ready for any problems. At this very moment, more than 3.5 million houses are heated with coal that we are short of. 30% of power and heating plants say they have no raw materials. Despite the climate policy goals in energy efficiency, energy savings, the situation is as it is. Is it a surprise? Experts, ecologic activists have been repeating for years that we need quick and effective energy transitions towards renewables. They warned against potential Russian aggression against any European state, and they kept saying we should be ready for any scenario. Now, these movements, this policy is accused of no fuel. To finish with my opening, you were familiar with the topic of politicians encouraging people to burn whatever can be burned to cover up the shortage of fossil fuels. There are anti-scientific theses on air pollution and smoke. So all the good work done so far by different organizations and people is going back because anti-scientific statements and people saying that smoke is good and improves our resilience. And a couple of days ago, I heard that the worst type of fuel, that is lignite, is permitted to be burned at homes. It will truly make Polish brown. I would like to discuss with our speakers why we have this situation, why our policy is so short-sighted, why are we forced to queue in kilometer lines for coal or lignite in Turów, in Bełchatów. Why are we facing high pollution rates? And finally, the terms we used during that panel, power, energy poverty and energy efficiency are not terms that people understand. We need a simple language. Our definition is, if you have a different definition, please report. That energy poverty is when over 10% of our monthly budget is spent on energy, heat, electricity, any type of energy. Energy efficiency, Adam will address it. It involves improving the use of energy, saving energy, and please remember that the healthiest energy is the one you don't need to generate and use. Dear MP, why there is so much negligence in energy? Didn't politicians from different sectors speak about quick, efficient energy transitions? Haven't the people at the top of power in Poland, didn't they expect the embargo from Russia? Where is the zone of negligence? How can we explain the situation in political terms? Thank you. Of course, we can look for the culprits, but only to find true solutions. However, I would like to start from addressing the topic of our panel. Energy poverty versus energy efficiency. Today, it is a true challenge. Not just today, but it gets a special dimension today because we should be talking about security, about accessibility. I'm talking about energy all the time, of course, and efficiency of consumption. So, and subjectivity, because this is a conversation about how far we, citizens, consumers, and producers as well, can decide about our security and energy supplies, energy availability within the expected standards, both in terms of life quality and care for the environment, is one of the essential rights that is not satisfied. Because this dry definition that you quoted only says how much we spend per family to have energy at home. It doesn't say if we have to spend that much. We should speak about it. How much comfort, heat comfort costs in our homes. And that heat generated and delivered. In simple terms, anybody can be energy poverty if they heat huge house in a non-ecological way, a house that is not insulated or drives a vehicle that consumes loads of petrol. It doesn't say whether the person is poor or not, whether a person acts sensibly or not. Why has it all happened? I'll tell you a simple story. In terms of heating our houses, this is the greatest anxiety today. Most family houses, some 4.5 million, are heated with coal. Coal that we have so far imported from Russia. Not because we liked that direction, because that was the best to use in our old-fashioned boilers. It was of proper calorific value, it was of proper size, etc., etc. This government has from the very beginning demanded to reduce or block the import. Alas, it acted to the contrary. In 2012, 13 million tons were imported from Russia only to heat houses. At the same time, nothing was done to quit that import. But quit because it would be unnecessary. It would be unnecessary if we allowed local solutions that combine efficiency of energy consumption and its generation from local sources together with its management. For example, this year, since the very beginning of this year, we allowed Putin to earn huge money for our import of coal instead of giving that money to Poles, because we know what to do. Insulate houses, replace windows and doors, fit in heat pumps with photovoltaic systems. That would drastically remove the problem. And addressing the politicians, bill I proposed that would eliminate old boilers and smoke. It would provide security of cost-efficient heating of houses, has since 2017 been presented to the parliament, and now it is still in a freezer. It's freezing, Poles are freezing, and we would need to spend on it far less than we are uselessly spending on failed assistance. In the light of energy efficiency, I wouldn't like to use simple theories. I would rather like, in the context of this conversation, not to focus on those with huge budgets and overheat their houses. Of course, it's important because it's pure weight, but we are facing enormous winter crisis when millions of Poles wouldn't be able to heat their homes. Let that be the subject of our analysis. Let's use examples rather than definitions. There is the problem, there is no coal. Professor, the question on being ready for the energy mix that could solve the issue. After many years negotiations of climate policy, country-state energy strategy, we spoke that we need more renewables, we need to build prosumers energy generation that is generating for your own needs and then selling to the grid. We need solutions that will make us independent from importing fossil fuels. What went wrong? Couldn't the energy transition be carried out efficiently and quickly? I'd like to mention the money, like the ETS money that was supposed to be allocated for transformation activities. I like your questions, but you misaddressed them. I'm a theoretician. I can tell you what should have been done, what we should do now. The crisis will be here. Our law is unstable in terms of investing in renewable energy sources. People who invested in photovoltaic panels, if they made it until a certain date, they will benefit. If they invested on another day, they will not benefit. And law should be stable, and investments. Well, transition is a multi-year activity. We should plan several years ahead. We are in the situation we are. I can't tell you why. There was not enough good planning. There was no vision. We scientists have been long saying that investing in renewables are a must. They will reduce crisis probability. They will reduce costs for people. And what for me is vital, we have a lot of things to do which we are not doing. We have this problem of poverty increasing, but when I was working at the project, and we wanted to make a project, we wanted to have subsidies to exchange coal boilers for gas boilers. Well, not today, but half years ago. And we assessed whom we would like to address was the group of people who could afford, but who never applied. Now it's too late. The project lasted so long. We were getting ready 2 years for it. So I have no answer.
I think this answer was right to the point. We know that you are not involved in political processes, more in the context of the transformation and what this might look like. We all agree that RESs should have been developed earlier. Adam wants to have his say. It might be a paradox that specific group, impoverished, was not pushed for exchange of boilers free of charge. Many experts believe that it was a road to nowhere. Homes that are vampires of energy, as called by Madame Emilevich, having swapped for ecological heat sources, they became money vampire because ecological source is expensive. Gas has become a trap. Energy poverty a year or 2 years ago related to a narrow group of people. And even people who are well off are now a part of energy poverty because of wrong policy. Experts who were involved in this policy said efficiency first, then the heat source that is in line. I started the initiation of your intervention. For those who don't feel what we're speaking about, you gave your definition. I can define energy efficiency, but this one will be complex because it refers to kilowatts per square meter as definition. Primary energy also, we are speaking about energy efficient building that utilizes little energy. And there is winter on the horizon. The Prime Minister said, fellow citizens, refurbish your house. Yeah, the reaction was, it's easier to say than done. But we are not helpless. But there was a funny situation a moment ago. A technical guy came up and he asked, can't you improve the air conditioning? I wanted to switch off the heating. You cannot feel that there's a huge screen behind us that generates huge, and I can see the air conditioning open to stay in. It's the first reaction. Energy efficiency. Switch off the heat source and air conditioning. So energy management in a building is cheap to implement. There'll be product placement, solution in control, in Windows in automated way. You can buy it with us, and it costs like a good dinner with a bottle of wine in a restaurant. This is the price level. How much? 500 zlotys. The central control unit. So it's good wine. Good restaurant in Łódź. Whole family. Right, two dinners, let's say, 2 lunches. And I know there are people who cannot afford it, but the cheapest energy is the one that you don't use. We've had this saying in public space, and energy agency clearly said that energy efficiency should be the basis, should be the basic energy source in the European Union. This is where you look for savings. Thermal insulation of a house is a priority, something we want to attain, but we realize that not everybody can do that. But patterns change and behavioral patterns change is within reach of everybody. I've recently met UN Habitat that deals with well-being of those impoverished, and they have a guidebook how to reduce energy consumption with simple energy window regulations. I don't know. There are 2 settings of locks, summer and winter. Switch it to winter. The airflow in ventilation system is limited to generate serious savings of energy. Beyond any doubt, in addition to the general vision of climate care, we've got a wonderful motivation, the financial motivation. Taking care of the climate is also part of economic balance. Luckily enough, it goes hand in hand. In addition to the publication of guidelines, I advise you the Energy Forum guidelines. Few steps published weeks ago, depending on the budget and activity, we have the description what to do to diminish energy bills and save and conserve energy. Tomasz, there is a poster that I suggest to put on your website on the Facebook. There is a message that boils down to one poster when it comes to recommendations and guidelines. Share knowledge, share good practices, let's inform one another. Because some people may think it's an obvious thing, but if we analyze details, we may find out that not many people know we can have the window regulation system for saving energy. Tomasz, you're a city councillor. I believe that you stay close to people and listen to people's voices. An activist, somebody who worked in these areas. Correct me if I'm wrong. Environment protection and energy. Smoke combat, yeah. I was trying to get this information. So it's energy and environment. I'd like to refer to your fourth speaker. Adam said that we need education and awareness raising in order to instill certain behaviors. How is it with regards education? There is about 100 people who are interested in the topic. Energy efficiency. You must be informed. We are meeting at the Festival of Ideas, the Freedom Games that bring together people who are interested in specific topics, but millions of Poles lack knowledge and awareness. If I came here and started talking to people in a small town with regards energy efficiency, few people would understand what I'm talking about. In your opinions, is awareness high enough on what can be done this year. There is president's words to wrap up your house, but what are we supposed to do? Where to get money from? Can we use any loans? How much can we save? Because every money investment from your budget needs to make you think what is the return of investment and how long it is. And there is a risk of wrong decision. Some people say it's wrong. The boiler replacement that cannot be used because of high costs. Is this awareness enough? Can people connect the dots? Do they know what the situation is? Can they cope with it this or that way? It's hard to answer all the questions in a short time, but indeed, as you are saying, the problem boils down to the fact that we convince the convinced. It's a challenge to talk to those who have not seen the problem. Let me return to what we had in Poland a few years ago. In Bielsko-Biała, the city of mine, the smog discussion started in 2017. There was a harsh winter. You could feel low temperatures and high particles condensation. It was a breakthrough moment. You couldn't have not seen it, but there were people, including city MPs, they said that it's too much because if you are flying over Podbeskidzie region, you can see the suspended particles because cars bring in and spray impurities. Now it wouldn't be possible. It's been progress. People started noticing the problem, and second of all, it started to pay off. The boiler exchange in many cities of Poland are not related to the fact that Poles are idealistic about ecology and clean air, but there were financial resources. And many people believe that it's worth having PVs, exchanging old boiler. And the moment we're in is a threat because it may no longer pay off. Because we have developed a consensus. And even today's ruling party, PIS, that hid away, created the Clean Air program. It is as it is, but many people use the money to replace it. I'm afraid we can use to the state a few years ago when Małopolska region had this anti-smog resolution that was suspended, and you can use brown coal and any floater concentrations and others. This is a huge threat for politicians and business and all those who find it important to know that it's feasible and pays off. The situation is as follows: no coal, shortage of coal. Let me tell you one more thing. As a part of Strategy 2050, the think tank in Polska 2050, I coordinate the energy team, and we looked at the market of coal in June. People working in energy companies checked whether we can bring in that from overseas. We can have low granulation coal that cannot be used in boilers. Have you seen tweeted a film? What kind of coal is brought to Poland? You could check it against the wall. It was mud mixed with nobody knows what substances, high emissions. We don't know what is the carbon content. It may destroy installations. It's waste from installations. You cannot use it. We have media information materials that inform us that you cannot use it for anything. It can even deepen this energy poverty. So we should develop mechanisms to make it feasible economically. People will not change boilers because there is a climate change. They need to know that this is a challenge. In the previous discussion, we had this return to the basic value discussion in the context of Maslow's pyramid. We encompass safety, not necessarily do we associate climate change with a threat for our life and health, but we should. The smog and climate change results we can feel. It will be even more important in the context of our home budget. The inflation is soaring, so many people will be guided by this, even if they thought about environment in the context of reduction of emissions. I can see that you want to comment it. I'll be quite critical with regards governmental things. You mentioned coal. It is being shipped. It cannot be used in home boilers because of granularity and quality, but we are going to have it. You have to do something with it. And most probably in the nearest future, it will finish in our energy sector. It means that the energy sector will not pick up coal from our mines. And because we are pretending that we are coping with the problem of coal for the upcoming winter, we are generating a huge problem. This is going to be mining problem because they'll be keeping these on heaps without managing it because foreign coal will be first to use. This is short-sighted perspective. I started criticizing the heat sources replacement policy because it was short-sighted policy, similar for Colombia and many other. A few million tons we are short of, but different coal, not the one that they are bringing. Let me refer to that. I don't know whether they are shipping it. It happens. It's somewhere on the seas. It's difficult to identify what it is because the government decided to shift it on local governments to solve the problems. But I want to say that something will land in large-scale energy because when electricity is generated, well, you could see Jaworzno problem. And now and again, we've got the failure of low-emission, cutting-edge energy unit. At the same time, coal in global markets is becoming more expensive because of the crisis in Ukraine and war in Ukraine. Polish mines exported lots of coal because they run on a high margin we are short of. And they couldn't stop their contracts because they were afraid of contractual fines. This is the margin that is generated for state-owned companies, and people demand pay rises. Not only companies but also miners need to utilize the margins. Trade unionists say so. We are speaking about today's regulations. We need to be aware that security and safety pertains to health too. But the scale of senseless decisions which increases poverty is really alarming. I'll give you pure examples when it comes to standards with regards coal. Hard coal, we removed requirements for 2 years when it comes to communal services, that is homes. So you can boil anything apart from muds, but it's not this. This act and this ban tells you you cannot trade in it. This abolishment of ban makes it possible to do training in something which is more of a waste rather than fuel. But in Silesia, you cannot use it as fuel because there is local assembly's resolution in force. A citizen may buy it knowing that this is state supply, but if you boil it in a house, you'll pay 5,000 zlotys if your neighbor is an informant. And the second thing, brown coal is now being traded, which was not allowed according to the same act. But it's not trading, it is still a ban on sales and incineration in your house. And there is ban on fines. You can buy from Bełchatów and Turów, but we have the act. But when you buy it, you cannot find this person. This act change, authored by Minister Tchórzewski, we protested it, showing the absurdity. It doesn't help at all, because this barrier is immoral. It's moral not to give fines for illegal activities. If somebody gets a fine, in this very act you've got the wording. You can write an application to the head of the tax office and they'll give you the money back for the fine you paid. This is the absurdity scale. There is one more regulation that may threaten our health safety. Regional Environment Protection Director, this is a government agenda, may issue a decision which makes it possible to emit fumes and dioxins of any type in local CHPs, so they can abolish any kind of standards because of energy safety. This is what they refer to. How about health, where 50,000 people die every year prematurely because of smog? This is the scale of madness we need to realize. This is not criticism and finger pointing. It is acting against the nation. This is what we need to protest. We may have the best concepts that the government does not take into consideration. What if, in the meantime, they vote out idiotic things that are so dangerous for human health and life at our cost, us, the citizens? Speaking about anti-smog resolutions, disarmament, it all started. Małopolska, as we heard, suspension of the regulations on solid fuels incineration, the same expected in Mazowsza region. Referring to what Tomasz said, he said something like, nobody's going to say that smog is not harmful. There are voices like, for example, Małopolska Voivodeship had the Speaker of the Assembly, the father of Andrzej Duda, the President of Poland, who said that smog has always been there. It's a living thing, and if we had not been exposed to negative stimuli, we wouldn't have been resistant, we would have been ill more often. This is why it was the scale of deaths in the case of COVID. So there's information like this.
If I may cut in, I only said we could work out something for many years and we can lose it now because of the current situation. Addressing your words, MP, I generally consent, but we should not turn radical. We will be short of several million tons of coal. It is a fact. There is a group of people, and we are talking about them today. There are people suffering from energy poverty, and they will not have fuel for this heating season. I generally oppose suspension of local resolutions, but please note these resolutions left certain gaps to prevent from punishing poor people who didn't replace the boilers. In most municipalities, there is no municipal police to control it. There are provisions therein that state if somebody is in a difficult situation or has started the replacement process, they do not need to be punished. So there were certain forms of assistance. However, PiS in the Małopolska region simply unsuspended the law. It's not a good direction, but we should look for solutions for the poor. Obviously so. Thank you, because I would like to move to solutions now. Could we define a single solution for the situation which is so complex? As we have heard many times, people are left without coal, no option to heat houses for winter. There is no place to get coal. Queues to mines that sell coal directly count in tens of kilometers, hundreds of vehicles, and nobody knows how the houses would be heated. We focus mainly on heat. Dear MP, I know you are not from the governing party, but what can politicians tell when people ask where should we get coal fuel from to survive? Well, it's a late question. Now the situation is, the answer is go to the mayor. This is the only thing those who caused the situation tell us. I mean here this chaos, no supplies, not war. But I have serious grounds for hope, because local authorities will handle the matter anyway. My hope relies on the fact that, contrary to what it may seem, we are a good self-organizing society, as we proved during the refugee crisis. I'm convinced that such local community, this is how I perceive the role of local governments in as forming the axis for mutual assistance, will result in that we will be able somehow to cope with the problem, especially in the case of those most vulnerable, like people from poor families with disabilities, etc. Well, what I need to say is that the solution is on the table. That is a moment when we understand how critical that is, how that can assist us, that supplies energy security on the local level is taken over by local authorities. Energy plants that will allow for aggregation of different energy sources, but different mechanism to build the energy efficiencies you mentioned, where the municipality can create an operator, and that would be a community operator for energy and heat comfort, but also including environmental and economic issues. There are tools for that. Digital management technology has progressed. We have resources. So instead of this virtual clean air program, instead of the money from traded emissions spent on nothing, that money should be allocated for economically efficient support for municipalities. It should go to local authorities that are under control of communities. It would allow to select tools for energy supplies, but also to take care of the poorer, most vulnerable. We have tools for that. We have this energy subsidy that can think of what I'd like to say one more word about how our money is redistributed to help with increased energy prices. I'll tell you how it works. Based on an example of freezing energy prices for households, it's not freezing for households, but for the meter. Imagine a single person, quite well off, living in a flat in Warsaw, a flat in Sopot, and a summer house in the mountains. Doesn't cook for children, doesn't make the laundry, and gets 3 discounts of 2,000 kilowatts for the countryside cottage, flat in Warsaw, room in Sopot. And a family with a huge family card, it could be a family of 2 pensioners with 3 children who live together. As an example of by an MP presented in a commission, and that family with 3 children will get lower allowance despite the need to use more energy on laundry, I don't know, daily use. So just distribution, allocation. But it's wasting money in the wrong place. Those who put in this small electrovoltaic system and heat with electricity through a heat pump cannot use this 1,000 zloty allowance for electrical heating, because in the same house the other family installed the electrovoltaics. Stupidity chases stupidity. It's very, very expensive playing with our money at our expense. We need public support. If that doesn't translate for the ruling party into bars, they will never go and look for logic. Still a couple of minutes before we hand over to you, dear audience. Tomasz, we have just heard from the MP. Go to the mayor, go to your local authorities. How can local authority respond? Thousands of people come to you saying we have no coal, we cannot heat our houses. What, if anything, can the local authority do? Well, go to the mayor, but the mayor needs to find the coal somewhere. As you said, that is discussed mainly in Upper Silesia, in municipalities with mines. Coal is there, but it's not always accessible. It's mainly for huge heating plants. But no mayor without any access to coal source will not conjure the coal. The question goes to you. No local authority will look for coal on their own. It can deal with the distribution, and it would be more effective than any central agency. But as I said, it's the questions to the governing party. We are facing the shortage of several million tons of coal. If there is still time to discuss solutions, we can recommend something on saving energy or looking for extra resources, like by taxing extraordinary profits by energy companies. There is a plan. 19 billion zlotys would be allocated from profits of energy companies. Is it a lot or not? To be discussed. Question to Adam. What's the role of business in shaping awareness of the need to introduce energy efficiency solutions to cut down on bills? You, as the construction products company, did you try to address people? Insulate your home, it will pay back. Install some systems, you will protect the environment and the health of your neighbors. Well, today there is a trend for renovation. I believe it started some 17 years ago. And indeed, we look at it business-wise. The volume of products sold for renovation is increasing from a few percent up to several percent. Each company in the construction industry takes a number of educational activities. That's the only thing we can do. This winter is lost, as the MP said. All these funny recommendations, collect dry wood, are useless. We can look around us. If we have those most in need who face real danger, not just economically, everybody will suffer in terms of money, but there are people who have no fuel to heat up houses. Paradoxically, this is the first year where we should be happy about the climate heating. Well, that would be bitter joy indeed, but we should think it's a pity we are wise after the damage, but never better later than at all. We should get ready better for the next year. There is huge potential to save energy in Poland for the needs of the housing construction without much ambitious strategies that go in hundreds of billions of zlotys, but by simple, smart disposal of public and private money. You can't renovate the economy with only public money. We need to create a policy of incentives to make people spend their own money that they believe is investment in ecology, economy, it pays back, health, as we discussed, and obviously there are plenty of methods. Final sentence. Every year we publish the Barometer of Healthy Houses report, and we talked to people who thermally upgraded their houses. We asked them why they spend so much money, time, organizational efforts. The first answer was to improve the comfort of living. The second, the look of the house. At the very bottom, you would find subsidies. Subsidies are important for a group. You named it very well, just distribution. Just doesn't mean equal. Equal would be injustice. Of course, you need to help the poorest, but those who can afford it should be just encouraged with proper incentives. And subsidy is not the best solution here. Professor, before we go to sections, how, from the economist's perspective, what should we do in terms of this transition? We spoke about investing in safer energy sources. Now, let's go into the future. What should happen in the next years to make us more independent, that we can assure energy security and do not face dramatic pollution and insecurity in terms of heat? Addressing your previous question, I believe that we can only speak of social solidarity and public assistance, but the crisis can have a small positive aspect. Earlier, there were no costs for for energy at homes. We don't know how efficient our fridge is. There are no bills. We just travel by car wherever we go, and all of a sudden there is this energy. And we've been telling for a long time that energy costs are vital, though marginalized. You mentioned improving efficiency in business. Wherever there is business, there is money. When there is money, there is saving, optimization. The problem is in the potential is in the housing sector. Progressive tax should be introduced ASAP. We can calculate what's the minimum required per person, like we calculate the social minimum to survive. We should know how much a person should use, and we should be calculated per person, not per household. And in long term, we need to design this transition. It needs to be based on renewables, and we need to focus on that being expensive and prepare the financial sector. And that's the essential thing. Thank you very much for your opinions. Are there any questions from the audience? Sir, you come first. We are short of a mic. Please name the addressee. Jakub Dymek, I'm a journalist. In January this year, I wrote about energy poverty for Newsweek, and I researched my Lower Silesia region. What struck me was awareness among local authorities regarding problems, energy poverty, transitions, whatever I went. Awareness was high. When I got back to Warsaw, when I talked to politicians from the central parties, they didn't know anything. They didn't know what's energy poverty, where's coal, etc. My question is, do you observe similar difference in awareness between politicians from Warsaw or larger Polish cities? Or is it just anecdotic and it was just my impression that people from Warsaw don't know what we talk about? And the second lighter question, these local authorities, when I spoke to them in January, we will get poor mining coals, which is abandoned mines where people extract coal. Would you expect similar warning? Well, let me respond. I'm an old Polish politician. I'm fully aware, and we participate in numerous debates, and I am not a separate issue. Perhaps you didn't make it with proper people. What we suffer from is to bring interest to the media that are a sort of conveyor belt to the public. So I'm happy that you deal with the issue. Well, those poverty mine, they may be back. I come from Silesia, something that used to be everyday phenomenon, stealing coal from rail cars. Many deaths were caused by that. But there is such a risk, especially that we can only guess that it would be pretty accepted Thank you. I'm being told to finish. To finish, just one more question. Two quick questions. The first one would be on the essence of subsidies, not better or worse programs or worse and worst, but isn't it a way which makes some people waiting for subsidies and somehow, I mean, any subsidies, boiler replacement, types of fuel, whatever you choose. And some people who replaced boilers on their own due to any reason whatsoever feel like idiots now who lost, like those who were insured during floodings, etc. The comment is not only about this party or that party. We are in a socialist mentality. Don't you think we need a situation where some people suffer from non-perspective thinking? They suffer from their own mistakes. Then the society will understand they should take their own fate in their own hands. We are not a huge family, we live next to each other. The second question is, you speak a lot about renewables, alternative methods to fossil fuels. Poland is not Norway. Our population is far dense. We don't have vacant places to install systems for water, for wind, for sun. Today only, decisions are being made about atomic energy, which seems to be only sensible alternative for coal, petrol. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I don't think that technologically there could be any other fuel that would ensure stable energy source.
Brief answer, because we should have finished long time ago and we can discuss further off stage. The first threat, it's Darwinism, that people have to learn and become wiser. And your question refers to efficiency of subsidies, is a broader question. How to offer social policy which subjectivizes rather than deprives of the rights. And the second, you are not right with these technologies. Poland has got huge RES resources, not necessarily water as in Norway. And we have 3D, decarbonization, through decentralization and digitization. We've got digital tools which make it possible to be flexible in managing different sources in European scale, not only locally, but on a European arena, to base energy safety on in 100%, almost 100% on RESs. Like biogas is stable. Poland has got potentials as large as Nord Stream, the Baltic Pipe. We need to finish. You will answer the questions during the break. Another planner launches. Thank you very much. Gabriela, Lenartowicz, Ambrozik, Karolina Safarzyńska and Tomasz Wawak. We hosted them here.